You guys want to see something real dumb? When Malekith sync kills High Elves, they sprout an entire second upper torso and head, and that is what gets cut off while the original body stays intact. And the Witch King is partially decapitated when he takes damage. I don't know what triggers this, but I guess he had a rougher time in the Fires of Azurian than we originally thought. Anyway, we're back on SFO Grimhammer with the Sundering update, and the Curse of Cain is in full bloom at the Tower of Hoeth. The end times have come. Malekith has taken up the mantle of Eternity King, Tyrion has drawn the Widowmaker, and the battle lines are blurred as Druchii and Azor find themselves caught up in a civil war quite unlike anything in their 10,000-year history. The Skycutters of Lothern are making their debut here, courtesy of Chaos Roby, borne aloft by the winds of magic and the gorgeous Swiftfeather rocks that nest alongside the glittering coast of Ulthuan, and they'll be joined by the Knights of Torgaval. We'll even get a glimpse at a handful of new unique units like the Shadowfire Guard, a union of Blackguard and Phoenix Guard from End Times Cain, whose sworn duty was to protect the Phoenix Throne. Now, is it stupid that people who have been murder-flaying each other for thousands of years are suddenly fighting side by side? Yes, no one ever accused the End Times of being a well-structured, logical narrative in its entirety, but there are parts of it that were cool, and we'll avoid most of the dumb stuff here. Most, anyway. So, welcome, my friends, to the Tower of Hoeth, in a time where Tyrion is suddenly the bad guy, when Cain is raising armies of the dead, and when Lothern Skycutters rule the skies. It's a flying chariot, quite similar to a Scourge Runner in form and function, but quite a bit scarier in melee because they're pulled by Wildberry Pop-Tart Eagles. In the front ranks are some exalted Tyrannok chariots, and Tyrion, the Wrath of Cain, made manifest. He can temporarily imbue himself with the Curse of an Arion, turning him into an even more impressive offensive juggernaut at the cost of melee defense, which a lot of the time probably isn't going to be worth it. And on the Azor left flank, ride the Knights of Torgaval, amongst the greatest aerial champions in all of Ulthuan. And if you haven't already noticed, there's a bit of a flying theme going on. These are the Mistwalkers for Eltharion. They are scary. You're going to want to stay clear of them. Got some silver helms and a metal mage with Gehenna's Golden Hounds and Searing Doom, while some rangers stalk through the trees in the hopes of gaining a favorable position. Now for the Dark Elves, the Manticore Lords cannot take down the Knights of Torgaval in a straight-up fight, but they bring some extra utility with their poison bombs, and they can deal 1,000 AP burst damage to Lords or heroes with Death Fist, a powerful single-target ability that can only be used once. On foot down below is the Eternity King, Malekith, Morathi's pet son, just Soulstealer and power from darkness for him. He is going to be kind of the linchpin of the entire build just because of Soulstealer and how good it is, especially in SFO. But he's on foot, so limited terror, limited usefulness in terms of being able to pick and choose his engagements. Accompanied by the Ice Blades, 2 Bolt Throwers, and the Shadowfire Guard in the back, which technically in the lore did not fight together in a single group, but rather separate regiments near to one another. But naturally, they combine all the strengths of both Blackguard and Phoenix Guard into one powerful legendary unit. Other than that, looking at some Dark Shards, Bleak Swords, Dread Spears, and in the front ranks, the Siren of Red Ruin, who has a bonus versus infantry of 10 in SFO, but generally performs much the same as in vanilla. She is very squishy, very easy to grind down in melee, but her speed and powerful range attacks that are pick and choose engagements quite well, and her wails will devastate blocks of foot troops. So she has a variety of different ways to impact the battlefield. And with that, those are the builds. Let's get into it and see what Foot Tyrion and Foot Malekith can do in the shadow of the Tower of Hoeth. And of course, if you've brought a lot of Lothern Skycutters, you better use them. They'll give a lot of high elf builds a skirmish advantage, and you might as well put some pressure on the enemy high value targets. So you got Bolt Throwers essentially flying on Overwatch. They can pick and choose wherever they want to be. They can strike quickly. They've got a ton of speed, and they have a lot of single target DPS. So if you brought them and Tyrannok Chariots, then you have a powerful skirmish contingent, and you might as well press that advantage. Reaper Bolt Throwers won't make it easy for them. I think the hitboxes on the Lothern Skycutters might make them a challenging proposition to take down from range, but they can be hit. The Chariot can be hit, the Eagles can be hit, so Reaper Bolt Throwers should be able to trade okay into them. But of course, Lothern Skycutters, while they deal less damage, they have the advantage of maneuverability. Tyrannok Chariots baiting out a bit of a charge there, and in fact, they got the Dark Shards to fire into the rear of the Bleak Swords. Pretty interesting move. I don't know how much of that was intentional or not, but Bleak Sword's starting to take a decent amount of friendly fire at the moment. And the Siren of Red Ruin moved to the back of the map because those Lothern Skycutters will make her very sad very quickly. Also important to remember that this is a missile platform, so there are Lothern Sea Guard atop it, and they also provide a little bit of range DPS that you have to be cognizant of. Typical Azure opening, honestly. They are a ranged-focused faction. They're not quite the Wood Elves, but they have a lot of units, a lot of specialized units that are great for taking stuff down from downtown. So they're just going to take a little bit of time to skirmish, drop some Searing Dooms on the Dark Shards, and run them over with the Chariots. A little bit of skirmish play before we get into the meat and thick of the melee grind. Siren of Red Ruin unleashing her sonic screams, and that'll first hit the mage and then blow up the battle standard bearer. For the Azure, these high elf regiments will get punished heavily by her screams, but Tyrannoc Chariots, we've got plenty of mass. They're not Ithalmar, but SFO Chariots are powerful. They'll run through your infantry no problem whatsoever, and lots of crimson being spelt here on the fields outside the Tower of Hoeth so far. And it's about that time for the High Elves to spring their trap. 2 Rangers that have been stealthily moving through the forest throughout this entire battle so far, now coming out of the woodwork and ready to go straight into the Reaper Bolt Throwers and put some pressure on the Rangers, while the Chariots time that charge perfectly and are attacking from the front. That will leave those range units in a pretty precarious position and allow the Knights of Torgaval to dive into the center of the now disarrayed Dark Elf army. Great charge. If they can stay on top of that Siren of Red Ruin, she'll die in seconds. They each Griffin out of the 4 models has 300 weapon strength, and most of that is armor piercing. She only has 30 armor anyway. Sunfang ripping through the Dread Spears, and the Siren needs to run. Knights of Torgaval weren't quite able to get that full surround off on her. If they had, she is dead almost instantly. Manticore Lords will want to give those Griffins a wide berth. They're just munching on some Rangers at the moment. They'll happily do that. And it's actually important to get rid of these mid-tier to low-tier High Elf infantry too, because they are bonus versus infantry, and with their physical resistance, they can kind of be deceptively tanky as well. So Manticore Lord's certainly not a bad choice to kill them. As Searing Doom rains down, we've got a duel between the Widowmaker and Malekith and Destroyer. I love those sync animations, man. Don't see them enough because you don't see Foot Lords very often in Total War Warhammer 2, but it's one of the reasons why we brought them like this in this battle. And we'll see who can win that duel. Tyrion should be able to, but Soulstealer might throw a wrench in his plans at the moment. The Defender of Ulthuan is certainly getting the upper hand. Now, the Knights of Torgaval have kind of been forgotten about. They went after the Siren, then got stuck in some Bleak Swords. The Ice Blades Frostbite attacked them, slowed them down, and then the Shadowfire Guard closed the gap. And Blackguard and Phoenix Guard in a legendary unit, combined with Murderous Prowess pots. By the way, the armor-piercing increase there is huge. Look at those stat lines. Oh my god, almost 100 melee attack, 100 weapon strength, most of that AP and bonus versus large. Knights of Torgaval just not performing well, and 3 of their models have already fallen while the Lothern Skycutters dive into the rear and show off some of their melee potential. Yeah, they're Eagles. They can do well in CQB too. Ripped those Dark Shards a new butthole. They're not enjoying that too much either. Definitely creates a new dynamic for the High Elves. The fact that Lothern Skycutters can so seamlessly transition between ranged combat, shooting down single entities, and then diving into the rear to get rid of ranged troops and run units off the field. It's a powerful combination for sure. This unit would be extremely good, I think, in a multiplayer scenario, and we're seeing it here. They're doing a great job for the High Elves at the moment. And the infantry has just been fodder for both sides. Elites are extremely powerful here, especially when we're talking about legendaries, and even with that a lot of damage spells present on the Sundered battlefield, most of the chaff and fodder is already dead, which will leave the champions to test their might in a battle to the death. Guardians of the Eternity King unfazed, settling into a brutal rhythm. Malekith ran from Tyrion, which is probably the right call, and making himself feel better about it by dicing up some Azure infantry instead, and Gehenna's Golden Hounds from the Metal Mage drop down, clipping the edge of the Shadowfire Guard. Typically going to be better against lower armor infantry. I don't think Gehenna's does amazing against high armor, especially not low model count units, but seem to do a little bit of damage there at least. And the Ice Blades running interference for the Eternity King, who continues to run away from the wrath of the Widowmaker. Tyrion is about to start styling on the Dark Elves here. Ice Blades stand no chance whatsoever in a grind with the Defender of Ulthuan, and a Chariot charge isn't going to make things any easier. Satisfying to watch for sure. Soulstealer dropping down. That'll clip the Tyrannok Chariot and Tyrion. And that's one way to deal with him. Kite him, run away, avoid him, and just hit him with spells that'll drain his life over time. Remember, he will get regen when he pops the Curse of Anarion, but he'll also lose melee defense, which means he can take more damage when he's in a duel with someone like Malekith, and of course Malekith will be gaining some HP back from that Soulstealer. Nice rear charge coming in from the Manticore Lords, clipping the back of those High Elf Spears. Malekith diving into the fray now, and at the moment they're just trying to get rid of all this infantry and leave Tyrion exposed and isolated. Knights of Torgaval are long gone now. They had one Griffin survive, but I believe it just routed off. And the Azure, well, they didn't last long in that engagement. Having 4 Manticores launch on your booty probably doesn't help a lot. Malekith also styling and showing off that really dumbass looking glitch. I mean, it's one of the coolest sync kills in the entirety of Warhammer 2. I love it, and you almost never get to see it because you almost never see Malekith on foot, or Tyrion on foot for that matter. I mean, it's so cinematic, but the fact that it doesn't actually decapitate them, it just makes a random upper torso appear out of the already intact body and go flying, it kind of kills it. So I'm hoping that this kind of video might show CA there's a problem there and they can fix it. That'd be great. I would like to be able to use Malekith more on foot and get those kind of sync kills because they add a lot of flavor to the battlefields of Warhammer 2. Nice Gehenna's Golden Hounds. It could be that it's a different spell in SFO. A lot of spells have been rebalanced, so it could be a higher AP component in this game. And I think it has an AP component in vanilla as well, but you just rarely see the spell. Either way, Silverhelm's in the wrong neighborhood. Pinned between the Shadowfire Guard and Manticore Lords. That is a rough fight for them for sure. And the Foot Lords ignoring their Duel of Fates and preferring to just kill each other's infantry, which kind of makes sense. Tyrion could press his advantage in that fight a little bit, but now that he's down to half HP, and Malekith still probably has at least one more Soulstealer, could be challenging. Now, the Ice Blades routed off by a charge from the Lothern Skycutters, which have been fantastic units this game. They've done a great job, both from range and in melee combat, and they're pretty much the reason the High Elves are in this game right now after the blunder with the Knights of Torgaval. Another Soulstealer coming down. Manticore Lords looking like they're in a pretty healthy position at the moment, and the legendary Shadowfire Guard closing the gap on Tyrion, the Defender of Ulthuan. Curse of Anarion has been popped. He now has minus 25 melee defense, but scary stats, man. 130 melee attack is beastly, but right now he doesn't want damage. He wants to survive, and that minus 25 melee defense is going to make that even more challenging when you're surrounded by 2 legendary units. And the Soulstealer isn't making things easier either. He wants to duel Malekith. He wants to close the gap there. Sunfang coming through, but it won't be enough. He's routing. Everything is routing for the Azure, and that's it. It's just a handful of Shadowfire Guard full HP on the Manticore Lords, and Malekith with the Soulstealers managed to clutch that one out, and a sundered race. Well, that battlefield is going to go to the Dark Elves and to the Eternity King. I guess pulling that Widowmaker didn't help Tyrion as much as he would have liked. Now, the biggest issue for the High Elves this game were those Knights of Torgaval. That is a 2,700 gold unit, a legendary Griffin unit where each of their models has 300 weapon strength, and they got 300 damage value. That's rough. Now, it happens sometimes you just forget about a unit and it gets stuck in the middle of an enemy army and you can't pull it out in time, and Frostbite made that more difficult for them to disengage. But yeah, losing the Knights of Torgaval like that was definitely very painful. Malekith, 2,400 damage value. Soulstealer is a great way to get some of that, and the Manticore Lords were also awesome, 2,000 damage value on them. Sirens of Red Ruin. She was shut down actually by a Lothern Skycutter charge. I don't remember if I caught that on camera or not. But yeah, the Shadowfire Guard were awesome. The Ice Blades were awesome. Even if they killed nothing that game, just frostbiting and slowing down the Knights of Torgaval was already something that would pretty much get their value back, whether it showed up on the end game stat screen or not. But yeah, Exciting battle. Love seeing those duels. I wouldn't say either Zach or myself played incredibly well that game. We definitely both had some clear-cut micro mistakes. My Siren took way too much skirmish fire damage from Lothern Skycutters, and I didn't do a great job zoning them out. Zach played great in the opening stages of that battle, and he tried to crawl it back at the end there, but once you lose that expensive of a unit, the Knights of Torgafall are just not a unit that you can only get 300 damage value out of and expect to win the game. I was very happy to see how effective those Lothern Skycutters were. I mean, they were fantastic for Zach. The skirmish potential out on the flanks, the diving into the rear to shut down the Dark Shards, they were awesome, and I hope to see more of them on the battlefield very, very soon.